Welcome to Beyond the Beat, your go-to source for insider knowledge on fantasy football. Hosted by Hiduk and Matt Olson. We bring you straight to the action with exclusive interviews from NFL beat writers, draft experts, and film gurus. Get the news from the field, straight from the sources at training camp and beyond. This is where fantasy wins are made.
Welcome in, everyone, to Beyond the Beat with 32BeatWriters. My name is Zach Hiduk, and I'm here with my friend Matt Olson. Matt, how are you doing today, man?
Doing well. It's apparently about to snow a ton here in Nashville.
Is it? I thought, wouldn't it have already snowed?
No, it's supposed to start in the morning, I guess, or overnight. I went to the grocery store and bought all the milk, eggs, and bread that I possibly could.
Okay, all right. First of all, I have to address something. Did I blow your ears out when I was playing that intro? If so, to everybody on the show,
it was wonderful.
I apologize. I'm getting used to some of the new faders I have over here on the left side of me. So if I did, I apologize for that. That being said, though, why does everybody do that? Why does everybody go? They're like, oh my goodness. Especially like, look, all right, if you're in a spot where if you lose power, it's going to be an issue for you, or if like you're a little bit older and you might struggle to get out of the house or something like that. I kind of get it, but I should be able to buy milk and bread before a storm just because I happen to be out, not because I'm stocking up. And I don't understand why everybody goes and clears the shelves for all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's bizarre. I mean, I feel like there's so many other things I would prefer over milk, bread, and eggs.
Right. Yeah, and if your power goes out, like
I know. It's bizarre.
Especially. Anyways, I don't know. That would be a good rant for me at some point. I don't understand it. Everybody freaks out. We had the snowstorm come through here, Blair or whatever, which I would have thought hit you, and I guess we didn't talk about it really.
No, we didn't get it.
Okay, so what are you getting now?
I literally have no idea. I trust my weather woman wife to give me all the details. 12 hours before anything happens. I'm here for the ride.
Okay. Well, I'm sure everybody is super enjoying us randomly talking about milk, eggs, bread, and our, various frustrations with how people purchase those items. But anyways, today, for everybody who doesn't know, based on the title of the video that you may be watching or the show that you are listening to, we're going to be diving into yet again another a Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft. So, of course, this will be fantasy relevant for you. And we will be moving on we'll be referencing, rather, the draft that our guy TJ did for us, the mock draft, the full NFL mock draft, which you guys can check out over on our website at 32beatwriters.com. And it's been really cool. We did this last time, and so we'll do this exercise once more now, and then I think we'll be doing it again in a couple of weeks after the Senior Bowl. Is that what we decided?
Yeah, I think, talking to TJ a little bit more in depth about player evaluation and, getting a first-hand look at some of these guys. And I think the really cool conversation that actually spurred from that is just how stacked the Senior Bowl is this year. Mm-hmm. And, the fact that you and TJ are going to just be down there, be on Radio Row, be interviewing these guys, be interviewing the coaches, just diving into all this. It's gonna make for such better, more accurate content as we get into, the NFL draft. And then hell, even beyond that, I feel like the stuff that comes out of the Senior Bowl is relevant through rookie mini camp. You kind of, the joys of 32 beat writers is that we do connect all those dots for anyone that uses our website and whatnot. So when we see the things in practice and in the Senior Bowl, and then those hopefully translating to the combine and then translating to rookie camp, it is really fun to follow and see that progression for some of these guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. last year was 5 or 6 first-round draft picks, just between Nix and Pearsall and Penix and Leggett now, and I believe some offensive line and defensive line and corner actually as well. This year you're going to get even more of that, I think, and then of course I bet TJ was saying like almost all of day 2 is at the Senior Bowl, which is really awesome, where it matters. Yeah. So as Matt referenced there, yeah, I'm super excited because we are going to be on Radio Row this year. Last year, for those of you who were following us at that time, again, which is in a couple weeks here at the end of January, be watching out for that. You're going to get stuff from us pretty much every day, starting from Monday through the rest of that week on Friday. But yeah, it's going to be great because we're going to be up at and interviewing players, maybe even Jim Nagy, who is the president of the Senior Bowl, at 6 a.m. to 8. Then we'll be headed to practices. We might allow ourselves to eat, or Matt may give us, the time to eat while we're down there. I don't know. And then after that, we'll be doing some post-practice recaps. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll talk with TJ more about that as we get a little bit closer there. But before then, we are going to be doing what we can based on the information that we have, whether that be the games that have been played previously in the year or the college football playoffs here. Matt, how about you kick us off first this time? I think I did last time. The Dynasty Rookie Pick 101 in the official second version of the 32BeatWriters Rookie Mock Draft is who?
So keeping in mind that we are keeping to the original SuperFlex half-point PPR scenario, but we did up it to 12 teams. So you guys are going to get 24 picks here from us. But that being said, in a little bit of a drum roll there, the first overall pick by TJ was Ashton Genty. And TJ has him going to the Las Vegas Raiders, which is ultra interesting to me. I feel like you talk to a lot of people that are doing draft stuff and they're like, oh, Genty to the Cowboys, Genty to the Cowboys, Genty to the Cowboys. It's like, it's almost out there so much that it's not going to happen. When you you hear there's smoke and then there's fire. Yeah. This is like the fire's already blazing and we didn't even get smoke. So I do like this pick. The Raiders need a complete rebuild this offseason on offense. I mean, they have multiple holes. We know that, from an overall team perspective. But, this is a true blue chip player. It pains me because, I'm probably the biggest sincere McCormick homer on the planet when it comes to fantasy. And I loved what I saw from the kid. But when you get an opportunity like this to make your offense instantly better, you have to take it. And, you have Bowers, who is generational. You have a chance at a running back who's generational. You have Myers, who put together a very quiet, good year. Obviously, the biggest problem you're going to be dealing with is the quarterback scenario. But if you have a guy who can move the sticks, in that backfield, and Las Vegas' plan is to, depending on who their new head coach is, but is to grind out games. I mean, you're looking at probably a minimum of 20 carries from this guy, unless they're in massive blowouts. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to see a lot of ugly grind games and a lot of yards between the numbers next year for if Genty does end up there.
Yeah, I like it. He had him, TJ had him going at 6 overall to the Raiders there, which, I mean, does seem crazy high. That was higher than I think Bijan was at 8, right? So, I mean, that would be and fans of the Raiders may not like to hear me say this in some respects, but that would be kind of like a Saquon Barkley type of pick almost.
Yes.
But, let's see how the rest of the draft shakes out here, and maybe you can see why it may not be the worst thing in the world and all bad. But yeah, they just fired their GM today as well. We're recording this on Thursday. That's
true.
Just for everybody who knows, Tom Telesco is out there now for the Raiders. So, and frankly, just a quick aside, I'm glad they did it. I don't like the spacing that it took place in. They should have known that they were going to do this, but it probably had to do with their head coach opportunities and who they were able to bring in and who was willing to take a job there. If I had to guess, we're going to see
like
a lot
Bill
of
Belichick.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely what's happening. I'm sure. Yeah, he took the UNC job to leverage a Raiders position. I'm sure. So, I don't know. We'll see. If that happens, though, then yeah, I don't know how facetious you're being there or not, but
I mean, it's interesting for a $10 million buyout. That's ashtray money for an NFL team. It'll be curious to see how this coaching carousel plays out and who lands where. I'll leave it at that.
If Bill pulls his own Josh McDaniels, that would be kind of ridiculous. So, moving on, let's go to pick 2 here. Since this is SuperFlex, you had selected Cam Ward, who ended up going to the Tennessee Titans at pick 1, which they now own thanks to the incompetence that had happened with several other teams who had the number 1 overall pick in their hands. But either way, Tennessee ends up with Cam Ward in the NFL mock draft from TJ. And, kind of gross in a way. They just fired their GM. We'll see how that shakes out there with Brian Callahan and if that offense really was entirely on the quarterback or had anything else going on with it. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole heck of a lot around in that situation, but he is the first quarterback drafted, and he is the guy who would definitely be starting for them. So it kind of makes sense. Is there any reason in particular you felt like he was the right guy at number 2, though?
I just think there's okay building blocks in place for them. You obviously have Calvin Ridley. You are most likely going to get another year of Pollard. You have Tajay behind him, Tajay Spears. Latham, who was their first round pick last year, looked pretty solid. He made, PFF's all rookie team. You decent pieces for a rookie QB. You gotta still. I don't think the jury is out on Callahan being a failure yet. I think if this is the pick and there's minimal first year success, he's. I mean, the guy's on the hot seat, obviously, going into this year for that reason. But you gotta hope that in this draft, in free agency, the Titans find help for Cam Ward. You have Tyler Boyd leaving. You have Westbrook Akine leaving. Free agents. Let's not say leaving, but free agents. So your only true returning passing offense is Calvin Ridley, Jake at tight end, who has proven that 400 yards and 3 touchdowns might be his ceiling. Even though we constantly see hype for that guy every offseason. I don't have my list of third-year rookie or third-year tight end breakouts on me and available currently, so I'm not going to dive into that, but I do think they get Cam Ward help. I do think if this is the pick, and I do think things aren't as bad as the Levis era. Levis had that 1 4-touchdown game his rookie year, and everyone fell in love with him. And then the wheels fell off and everything imploded. So I think you're going to get a little bit more stability with Cam Ward, which is why I had to take him this high. In Superflex, especially if you're drafting this high, you're probably QB needy. It just made logical sense there.
Yep. No, I mean, all of that makes sense. And again, we'll see what the Titans do further down the draft board that may influence this pick here as well. At number 3, we had another quarterback go.
Yeah. I mean, this is where Sanders went off the board to the Giants, right? A lot of shade thrown to Sanders this week, which I think is pretty interesting. With that whole, no one has a first round grade on him. Not no one, but what was, I think, the term, like the phrasing of the report was many scouts or many, analytic people don't have a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders. And I mean, I get it, but let's look at how the NFL draft works. It doesn't matter what the grade is.
Yeah, I was going to say, did anybody really have on Mac Jones or, I mean, and we were also told some people had first round grades on like Malik Willis. So
yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter what the overall grades are on a lot of players, especially at premium positions. Now, obviously, in our mock here, he went third overall in terms of fantasy. And again, I think that's, a testament to how a league plays out. You need to take chances on QBs when you don't have them because it's the only way to solidify your team. Now, I will say, I think Sanders isn't going into from a personnel only standpoint, going into a better situation than Cam Ward might be. Do you feel like that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah. So I guess we should clarify. He did go to the Giants. And so that gives him Malik Willis. No, we're still working through this, everybody. It's still the new year here in 2025. And so, we're working on it. But yeah, I mean, better. You have a head coach who's been around for a little while. So there's that. Been around for a little while, as in more than 1 year, I suppose. They will be fighting for their job, but you definitely have a great number one wide receiver. So yeah, I don't know if I'd call it better necessarily, but again, we'll wait for later in the draft where this quarterback may be getting some help to help influence that pick a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it better necessarily personally, but I don't think it's worse. And
I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but Tracy, Theo, at tight end, Neighbors. You're telling me that's not better set up than Tennessee right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Tony Pollard's contract. I don't know that Tony Pollard and Tyron Tracy are all that different. You're never going to see me reliant or like calling a, third or mostly fourth plus round running back like a huge dude. But anyways, yeah, we'll see. So let's we probably should pick up the pace here. We're going to be here for the next couple of hours. So let's go ahead and do that, and we can debate all of that later. At number 4, we had Ted McMillan going off the board to the Dallas Cowboys, the wide receiver. I think in this case, the Cowboys landed another wide receiver. Some people may take that and be like, man, what a bummer. They already have CeeDee Lamb here. But, if Dak is, he comes back healthy and he's able to lead that high-powered passing attack that we've seen in the past under Mike McCarthy, who appears to be coming back. He wasn't allowed to interview in Chicago. So, I don't see why they would do that if they weren't bringing him back. That being said, Ted's combination of size and his contested catch ability, I think, could make him a great 2 to CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. So it makes sense to grab him at 4.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of inconsistency at the wide receiver 2 position in Dallas for the last 2 years. Why not shore it up? Why not give your, Dak another chance to continue to allow that offense to tick? It makes sense.
All right, number 5.
So a pick that, has kind of been, I say that we've done 2 of these, locked into a team, but Omarion Hampton going to the Cleveland Browns. It just, sometimes you see picks that just make sense. And with Chubb most likely on the way out, with Ford, I don't want to say flashing, that's a terrible way to put it, but not being as consistent as some might like. This is a position that I think Kevin Stefanski likes to have shored up and a reliable scenario here, or not scenario, but player. And I think that's why they go Hampton. And, the Cleveland Brown running back position has produced really year in and year out for quite some time now. So if Hampton slides into that Chubb role and, you got to like this kid. I mean, it's a perfect landing spot. Yeah, the QB play is going to suck. It doesn't matter who's back there. But again, that's been consistent for quite a few years now too. And look at what Chubb's put up. So I like the pick. I think it makes sense. I think it's instantly going to pay dividends. It's I think we could see this kid moving up boards this year quicker than some of his peers, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, if Nick Chubb indeed is not back, it does make sense to bring the running back out of UNC onto the team there. And I will disagree with you. I think that Kevin Stefanski has been able to get a decent amount of juice out of the fruit that he's been given other than Deshaun Watson when it comes to the quarterback position. But either way, I don't think that it's possible that Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb have both played their last snap for the Browns, at least one that the play callers there would choose to have them play. At number 6, we had wide receiver Emeka Egbuka coming off the board to the he went to the Kansas City Chiefs, rather. He's the kind of guy that has a projected fast 40 time with Hollywood Brown potentially gone. He was only on a 1-year deal. He's more of a slot guy, typical height, weight, speed, though. And as opposed to like somebody like Xavier Worthy, who has the speed but not that weight that you're necessarily looking for in Rashee Rice, who was, in my opinion, the guy that, well, not even really my opinion, just like fact, that Kansas City wanted to run everything through. They were pushing everything through Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
But that guy's going to get suspended this coming year. It may or may not overlap with the injury that he currently has anyways. But either way, to start the year, he's going to be injured or suspended. And so that's going to give a rookie an opportunity to come in and make a bit of an impact here. And Emeka Egbuka could certainly be that guy out of Ohio State. At number 7, we had another wide receiver go.
Yeah, and I actually really like this pick. It's Luther Burden going to the Pittsburgh Steelers here at 7. And I think it's been, you can 100% correct me if I'm wrong with this statement, but it has been glaringly obvious for the last 4 weeks in Pittsburgh that they need a playmaker and that George Pickens is not the guy that's going to do it regularly. Pickens needs someone to be able to alleviate coverage off of him. And there's no one on this Pittsburgh team currently that is going to do that. The scenario here, I think for, especially this year, is Pittsburgh's like, let's go back to training camp real quick, right? Everyone was under the impression that Van Jefferson was going to be the wide receiver too. Oh, he's having a good camp. Oh, Calvin Austin's flashing. Like there was never consistency in the wide receiver 2 role through the entire offseason last year. And there was never consistency in the wide receiver 2 role through the entire season this year. It was a mess. Freiermuth suffered because of it, and he had a good offseason. But we saw everything suffer because no one else emerged. This is a way to get a playmaker on the other side of the field, lining up regularly with George Pickens, and I think then you have an attack that you can at least count on to make a play, and especially a vertical play down the field with contested catches, which, if Russell Wilson sticks around there, that's his game. So I like the pick overall for sure.
Yeah, it makes for a very interesting scenario there. If he goes there, though, I wonder if that means he has a bad attitude, because it seems like every other wide receiver they pick has one, at least the ones that make a serious impact and then go on to be doo-doo on other teams. I'm going to actually also make you talk about the next pick here, because it's frankly not a pick that I would make, but it is a pick that you made in our mock draft, and that is Travion Henderson, who went in the mock draft to the Dallas Cowboys at pick 76, running back. What on earth are we doing here, Matt?
So this full disclaimer, this wouldn't be the pick if it wasn't the Dallas Cowboys. I think it could have been any other team and I would have passed here. But I have to believe that if he ends up in Dallas, he's going to get every opportunity from the get-go to be that, even I guess we'll call it 1A. Who knows what's going to happen with Dowell, but I think if Rico walks, I think they go a low-key or a low-salary veteran. And again, we're talking 100% if they bring in Henderson. They'll bring in a low salary veteran. They'll bring in Henderson, and that gives Henderson every opportunity to earn that 1A, 1RB1 job in this Dallas offense, which is not a bad scenario. Dallas O-line ranked mid-pack this year, but I think a lot of that is we just watched running back after running back run into the back of their linemen pretty consistently. Now, Rico got it together towards the end of the season. I think, the game slowed down a little for him. He had those few games of over 100 yards. But Henderson, I mean, if you want to battle me on this, I am not going to stop you, but I feel like Henderson is a better talent than Rico. And at this point, if you're getting 1,008 from Henderson, and it's, what's my good friend, who is the running back up in Trent Richardson. If it's Trent Richardson style, and he's getting 1,008 by getting 3.5 yards a carry, then so be it. You know what I mean? We'll take that in fantasy. He's going to get every opportunity to succeed, and that's really the thought behind this pick.
Yeah, it's not that I totally don't get that at all, and I think part of this, we didn't even have TreVeyon Henderson in the last mock draft at all. And as you mentioned, I think that the landing spot will have a lot to do with that. With running back, I think that makes more sense than wide receiver. I tend to go talent much more so when it comes to wide receiver and opportunity. I'm willing to let sway me a little bit more when it comes to running back. So it's not that I totally understand it, but I will say that there are a lot of Henderson, is it simps? Is that the word that the kids would use perhaps out there, who really had their proverbial undies in a bundle last time. So you can be satisfied here. He makes the first round. We then get Tyler Warren, tight end, going to the Indianapolis Colts. He was selected in this NFL mock draft at pick 14. Here he goes in our Dynasty mock draft at pick 9, tight end out of Penn State. Milo made this selection, and a couple of notes that he has on here is that he's one of one of the favorite prospects that he has this year, and Milo watches quite a bit of that. The landing spot would worry me with Indianapolis. We've talked about the completion percentage being at we said 47% or something like that.
That's great.
For the guy that I can't even, Anthony Richardson there. So yeah, everybody's like, man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He forgets every player that he talks about, but it's just because we're recording this at 10 o'clock at night after dealing with a sick wife and baby who have the flu. So give me a break. But, it's a guy, who has some really impressive athleticism, reliable target, one of the most versatile weapons in college this season, talented offensive mind like Shane Steichen, you'd hope would be able to maximize him. So that's why he goes at pick number 9. At pick number 10, this is the guy I would have selected over our friend TreVeyon Henderson, and that's Caleb Johnson going to the Los Angeles Chargers. Similarly here, I'm talking opportunity. We've got a guy who was paid a couple shillings to run for that team this year. And if they make a selection here, as they did, let's see, where do they have him? 20 picks ahead at 57. We had him going, the running back out of Iowa, to the Los Angeles Chargers. So, 1,500 plus yards, 21 touchdowns. That is a guy that I'm willing to select here at number 10. And I'm going to feel amazing about that.
No, I mean, I get it. Their talent is there. My biggest fear is the Los Angeles Chargers offensive philosophy from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. Right. And maybe that was because of the emergence of McConkey. Maybe that's because of the resurrection. I say resurrection, even though it's year 2 of Quentin Johnston. The offense developed into a little bit more of a, not pass centric, but it shifted.
I'd say so. Yeah,
it shifted, right?
Yeah.
From everything that Harbaugh was banging the drum on from the time he got hired. And again, do I think he'd be a great pick? Yeah, I do. But I also think that the way has to be cleared for him And until we know for a fact that he's going to be the RB1 on that team, I think it's very hard to just assume that he's going to take that production from college and immediately slot it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that the guys that they have there are going to be guys that are there super long term. Wow, I can't. Of course, I'm not going to mention.
I know Dobbins is a free agent.
Yeah,
but I think if I'm looking to bring him back, he was rock solid for them. If he comes back at a decent price, like why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, he's got an injury history. Greg Roman there, obviously, if he continues to be the guy, is going to be a guy that wants to run the ball. And he's probably going to want his guys doing it, which is why you have both Gus Edwards and Dobbins on the team in the first place here. But I don't know. They didn't pay him a lot the first time around. He's probably going to want a little bit more if he can get it. He probably thinks that he can. I'm just, projecting that, of course.
Sure.
But I feel like if they make a pick like this at 57 in the second round there, that tells me that they're going to be leaning more towards the run. I don't think that you change who Greg Roman is in, 3 months. I don't think that you change who Harbaugh is in 3 months either. And so I think that they'll want to get back to doing what they were trying to do in the first place. And that's kind of where I'd make that selection. But we'll see what ends up happening. We're going to wrap up the first round here in just a second. Before we do that, let's go ahead, take a break, and then we'll blast through the last two picks and through the second round. For those of you on YouTube there, ignore the awkward pause. And for the rest of you, you have no idea what I'm talking about. All right. Colston Loveland is selected at number 11. He went to the New York Jets. Talk me through it.
I think it makes perfect sense here. The Jets need to shore up the position. This guy is, I like him as a player. I think he's going to stay on the field regularly. I think he's a high snap count guy as a rookie, especially in a situation like the Jets. Obviously, the QB situation is a little weird. Is it going to be Rodgers? Is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be my under-radar pick of Jordan Travis, who's just sitting there waiting to erupt? That might be a little far-fetched, but it's fun to dream. I talked about him, and I actually drafted him in the last draft. And I just like him because he can block. He's a willing blocker. He's an able blocker. He can be on the field regularly, which is going to lead to snap counts and opportunity. I think as long as the Jets are a slightly better dumpster fire, he's a worthwhile pick at the back end of the first.
All righty. At the end of the first, the very end of the first, we've got at pick 12, Alec Ayomayor. I think I'm saying that right. If I'm not, we're going to fix that. But he went to the New York Giants, and I can just copy and paste what I said last time regarding the New York Giants, except instead of Cam Ward, of course, now they have Sanders. But this guy, he is, similar to what we said further up the draft board with Tet McMillan here on the Cowboys. When it comes to the Giants and Alec Ayomayor, if we're saying that correctly, everybody can correct me in the comments here. We're looking for this guy to kind of play similar to the Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson role. I mentioned that last time as well. We just kind of want a Batman and Robin thing here going on, and if we get that, that is what I'd be looking for. Again, you can't rely on Neighbors for absolutely everything and being the guy that you target 17 times a game, every single game. You're going to get the guy killed, and so you need another guy who can do that. He does like to use, as we mentioned, that physicality to win. Those type of guys always personally concern me as a Patriots fan. You can understand why that would maybe be the case. But with that being said, he's a guy that may be able to benefit from being opposite of Malik Neighbors, and with a guy like Shadur Sanders, you'd hope that he'd be able and willing to sling it. And with the job of Joe Shane and Brian Dable on the line in this coming year, they're going to have to win through what they should be known for, and that is their offense. Before we move on, before we move on, I'm actually going to correct myself here. Alec Ayamaner. I don't know what I was saying. Ayomanor. That doesn't, what stupidness was that? I don't know. Helps to use Google every once in a while to correct yourself when all you do is watch a player and don't necessarily watch every single one of their games. So anyways, sue me, I don't watch every Stanford game there is. Let's move on to round 2. We're going to lightning round this. We're going to go. You're going to stop me if you feel like there is something relevant to talk about. Unfortunately, there is definitely something, not unfortunately, but there's definitely something relevant to talk about here with pick 1 in the second round, and that is running back Quinshon Judkins. This is a guy, if you've played college football 25, you know all about, of course, but the reality is I just don't think he's going to be as high of a pick as somebody who plays that game may assume. The running back out of Ohio State, we didn't even have assigned to a team. We're anticipating he goes somewhere in 3rd, 4th round, something like that. We're going to get more assignments as we continue to go through some fits and stuff like that. But where do you feel like Judkins fits into the conversation here? And do you feel like the pick at 201 is too low, too high, or just about right?
No, I think at this point, I feel like a lot of people look at OSU this year and say like, oh, him and Henderson were the same player. It's just, I think Henderson did average almost 2 more yards per carry this year than him. But he still put up good numbers, 900 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's a good athlete. He's got good vision. I will say something that interesting that TJ doesn't note with him is that his previous year at Ole Miss was potentially better for his draft stock than this last year at Ohio State, which does make sense. He just, wasn't as great numbers wise as he was the previous year. And unfortunately, even, NFL sports or pro NFL teams sometimes look at stats. And, it's just, it's not as pretty sometimes when you're a little bit back on your numbers. OSU didn't have a great line. I think that played into both Henderson and Judkins' scenario at a lot of points of the season. But overall, I think at the top of the second round with a QB with a running back who did do what he did, I think it's worth taking the risk. Why the hell not?
Quinn Ewers is selected at pick 67, going to the Cleveland Browns here at in our NFL mock draft. He is selected at 202 to begin the second part of the second round. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. In a SuperFlex league, I guess it kind of makes sense. We talked a little bit about the Cleveland Browns earlier, give them a new running back, and then also potentially give them a wide receiver cornerback at the top of the draft at number 2, where Travis Hunter went. I don't think we mentioned that, but just to mention that as a guy who will probably go off the board here in a little bit. But it's just, I don't know how much I do or don't believe in yours, but I do believe in the coaching staff there, as I mentioned before. And so in a SuperFlex league, I get it at pick 2 of the second round. Move us on to pick 3.
Yeah, so speaking of getting help and whatnot, we now have our help for Cam Ward coming in at 2-3, which is Xavier Restrepo, who Milo took. And I think, this is a good pick. We talked about previously that the Titans needed help. They needed to solidify that wide receiver too. You're looking at a guy who put up back-to-back 1,000-yard years in Miami, which is great to see. I mean, that's a scenario where he played with 2 different quarterbacks, had 2 different levels of success. Obviously had more touchdowns in that final year, and averaged a higher yards per catch, but you still see consistency from him, and consistency is key for next level ability. So you have that scenario. He can command targets. He And you're bringing them in with Cam Ward. You know, they're going to build chemistry as quickly as anyone can possibly do so. So I like the pick there. I think it's smart for the Titans, and it's smart to help Cam Ward.
All righty. I mentioned him earlier. Travis Hunter, we're listing for the sake of this draft, I suppose, as a wide receiver, but we anticipate him at 32BeatWriters to play mostly cornerback. You're probably going to get, if any, I suppose, this is a projection, this is not a guarantee, that, 6 to 9 plays a game, maybe you're hoping on offense.
I mean, I think it depends. Plays. Right? It depends where he goes. It depends who the coaching is. I think, it's said best here. Until someone comes out credible, which is probably whatever team drafts him, comes out and says, hey, this kid is a cornerback, we have to imagine he's going to play offensive snaps.
Yeah, and I do think that, I think that he probably should be utilized that way, at least especially if he goes to somewhere like the Cleveland Browns, where things can kind of be drawn up and schemed up maybe a little bit easier by a head coach like that. You got Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore, Jamari Thrash was a rookie we got to see last year at the Senior Bowl as well. I'm just going to mention every Senior Bowl guy that I remember that we watched because it's fun to see them in person and it's fun to learn about them. So you get to hear it for the rest of ever. But Travis Hunter, very talented individual. You're hoping for some splash plays off his design work, but I don't think that I could justify taking him much higher than this. And I don't know if I would if it was me or not making the pick at this point on the board. But nevertheless, at 205, we have another running back.
Yeah. So Dylan Sampson out of University of Tennessee comes off the board. Again, supposed to go later in the draft. We don't have a designated team for him, but TJ has assured us that these will be shored up as probably just after the Senior Bowl, just as a friendly reminder. Listen, you've heard this from me before. Dylan Sampson went to the University of Tennessee. Let's look at the success rate of running backs who have gone to the University of Tennessee. It's worth a dot throw. Would I have drafted him this high? I don't know. On a perfect team, yeah, sure. He had fumbling issues this year. I think everyone saw that. But I don't think his size is going to come into play as much as it has or been talked about in the past. And again, I mean, there's just something about Tennessee producing NFL running backs, regardless of who the coach is and regardless of what the scenario is. So for me, if I'm in redraft, which we haven't really talked about, this is a good dart throw guy. In this case, more than fine at taking the top half of the second round. He was, I believe, and I don't want to lie here, but I believe he was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, at least at the running back position, something like that. So a great pick here, value, hopefully a good landing spot in our next mock, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, Greg, who selected Sampson here, mentioned Devon Achane as a guy who's a smaller back that also had some success, so maybe you can have a similar thing happen there. We'll see what happens. Another guy who, in my mind, has some questions around his ability to succeed at the next level is Jalen Milroe, who, of course, played for Alabama. He goes pick 37 in the NFL mock draft by TJ, but here he's going at 206 in a SuperFlex. Honestly, for me, a lot of this is just the rushing upside, right? He's our fourth quarterback off the board at this point, and you have some lower drafted talent here through the rest of the second round. Second round picks to me in dynasty leagues are honestly just kind of like third round picks. A lot of people deem as a flyer, but once you get past like 204, 205, you're really slinging stuff at the wall and just hoping it sticks. If you're lucky, you're hitting at like 30% maybe on players at that point in the draft. Just not great. And so if a player is going to hit for me, I'm hoping that it's a rushing quarterback, and Jalen Milroe certainly is that. A couple of years ago, a lot of people would have anticipated that he is a guy who would have been not the fourth quarterback off the board, but possibly the first. Again, taken number 37, top of the second round, he goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, if I failed to mention that. a brand new head coach, a brand new GM. In this particular draft, he has already gotten a running back in a little bit. He's going to get a wide receiver. You pair those guys with Brock Bowers, you got a whole new offense there. And so, you're just hoping that you got a guy who can run that scheme and take advantage of the athleticism of Jalen Milroe, despite the other things that he may need to fix.
Agreed.
All righty. I've been setting you up with every other pick, so I'll do that again, I suppose. At 207, we get a wide receiver to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, and the more I've read about this guy, the more I like him. Jaden Higgins, to Zach's point, is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Gabe Davis scenario has been a disaster. We kind of talked about that in the last pod. But Higgins brings a pretty solid build with him. 6'4", 215 guy. I will give credit to TJ here. He makes a really nice note that you guys can all bank. If Parker Washington is the heir apparent to the Christian Kirk role, he's someone you're going to want to look at to get on your team. He's flashed numerous times. Just that's the one little sleeper side note, I guess, of this pod. But if you bring in Higgins, you now have the slot covered. You have Higgins playing the X, and you have Brian Thomas just moving where he needs to move. It could mean that there's a scheme and a specialized role for Higgins when that happens. Trevor Lawrence, I feel like we're going to get an off season of hype, and then things are just going to stabilize to who Trevor Lawrence has been year after year after year. Your ceiling's going to be limited, but your floor is going to be decently high. So we got to look at that. And in the back half of the second round, I'd argue this is a pretty solid pick.
All right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Another guy, he's going at the back of the second round in this mock draft as well, and that is Mason Taylor. He ends up going the tight end out of LSU to the Seattle Seahawks at pick 50 here. I don't have a ton to say about that situation. There's been a little bit of uncertainty regarding the future of Geno Smith. I don't think that's that big of a thing, but perhaps it is. You got a new offensive coordinator at some point coming in. They're doing interviews for that position there. So I don't really know what to expect. And tight end is such a gross thing when it comes to fantasy that, I guess I'm just going to take a guy that has a little bit of versatility and hope that it works out. Again, the place at this point in the draft makes sense to me, but I don't have a ton to say other than that at the moment. So at 209, we get Cam Scatabo. Is that how you say it? I mean, everybody's on this guy, apparently.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I get it. He's fun. He is a bruiser. Like, he's a good story. I feel like everyone instantly makes those Mike Allstott comparisons. It just, they both have no neck, so that's kind of cool. But, you just see this just battering ram of a runner. I mean, the guy, like, everyone was talking about, Saquon Barkley's quads. This guy's calves look like most people's torso. He can drive with his legs. I mean, we saw it in the last college football playoff game, like him just pushing piles, sometimes without assistance. He gets low, he drives. He's going to be effective in whatever role he has, but I don't know how much of a prominent role a guy like this will ever have. But I guess that at this point, and I feel like we've talked about this for the last 4 picks, but hell, at this point, why not take the swing, right? Like, if you miss on a guy like this, it's no miss is a fun miss, but this is a fun miss. Kind of reminds me of Dylan Lobby last year. Like,
yeah.
Everyone wanted him to succeed. He was exciting. When he didn't, was anyone shocked when he didn't do anything as a rookie? No, not at all. But you'll love to see the kid out there, and you love to see the effort and all that. Now, obviously, the jury's still out on him. He's 1 year into his career. Who knows what could happen? But this is another guy who kind of is a wild card. If things break right, you never know what kind of playing time you could see. He could be your next Marion the Barbarian, for all you older kids out there. But cool pick, fun pick. I like it here.
Next, we get Isaiah Bond going at 210. He went to the Las Vegas Raiders. And, this guy's fast. We talked about upside this point in the draft. This guy's fast. That's what you get. And then, of course, we mentioned the quarterback and the running back going there already in Jalen Milroe and who was it? Why am I? Marion? No.
Genty.
Yeah.
That's a fun offense.
Yeah.
Right. Let's look at that.
Yeah, you get Genty, you get Milroe, and you get a speedster along with Brock Bowers, who is one of, if not the most dominant tight end already in the league. So, that again completely transforms that offense, gives you some upside, would be really interesting. Round out the second round for us here, Matt, with the next two picks, if you don't mind.
Sure. So the first one is Gunnar Helm going to the Denver Broncos. Kind of similar to what we talked about last podcast, but this is one position, the tight end position in Denver that needs to get shored up. This is a pretty good landing spot. Not my top tight end that I would want to see there. I still think Colston Loveland, if he can get to Denver, is who I'd like to see from a fantasy standpoint. But man, it's a pretty good consolation prize and a great little dart throw. We're going to get to see him this weekend again play. I think the more that he is in the national spotlight, the better it's going to be, obviously, for him and his draft stock. But I am curious to watch him this week, check out his blocking ability and whatnot, because we know that's what will lead to snaps. And, Denver's in a weird position right now where they have Troutman and Kroll and the carcass of Greg Dulcich, the forever hype train, I should say, of Greg Dulcich. But this is a position that makes sense to a team that needs the position. And if we're going to see competent guys getting drafted to the Denver Broncos at the tight end position, they're always going to be worth a dart throw for the pure wasteland that is currently exists there. And then to go into the last pick and of the second round, we have Tez Johnson going to the Arizona Cardinals. Pretty awesome player. We get to see him a little bit more. Oregon, fast offense. Not a big guy. Obviously, the speed came into play a ton. I love the note here from you that says we hope he turns into a better version of Elijah Moore. Yeah. I think there's probably 10,000 fantasy owners out there that probably wish half their guys turned into a better version of Elijah Moore. But we know the NFL wants to get faster. We know that every coach in the NFL wants to get faster, more athletic, allow playmaking to happen at a higher rate. And this is a guy that can do that for you. Now, it's a semi-luxury pick for the Cardinals. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. there, obviously. You have McBride, who's clearly can catch targets and not touchdowns. You have Michael Wilson, who's a very competent, complimentary wide receiver. And now you're going to throw Tez Johnson in the mix. So this is a guy that at this point, obviously in the rookie draft, you're not expecting a ton immediately, but you're drafting him with hopes that he emerges and doesn't turn into a Cardinals Dortch situation where, you see all this hype and then nothing happens. Kyler Murray's probably not going to be able to, keep three guys afloat. He's barely keeping two guys afloat. And if you listen to our show last week, you'll know that he didn't keep Marvin Harrison afloat as by his ADP standards. So this is a luxury pick for the Cardinals. It's a luxury pick for your fantasy team. Again, Zach alluded to it. We're in a wasteland, and a lot to go from an overarching standpoint. Now that we're finished with this, we are. This is going to change 10 times by the time we get to draft night. We always see the first round transform overnight sometimes. Oh, this guy's pro day. He didn't do it for 12 games in the regular season, but he had the best pro day of anyone in existence. So now his stock moves up. And TJ's going to be letting you guys know about those rookies and their stocks going up, their stocks going down. More importantly, why they're going up, why they're going down with tangibles. And we want to make sure we're bringing that to you guys. I mean, you'll be able to track it on the new website. You'll be able to track it, on the conversations we have. But we really want to make sure we're bringing you the information that matters so that you can make the best decisions come your rookie draft.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I think we're very excited about, everything to come here. And hey, congratulations. It's our second official Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft of the year. The first, I guess technically the second one of 2025 as well. So that'll be the last one you guys get for the next couple of weeks here until after the Senior Bowl probably. And as Matt mentioned, this is going to go up and down a little bit, but it's important that we do these. And just because it kind of, starts working those muscles, we're moving on from the NFL season and digging into this, finally familiarizing ourselves, so familiarize yourself with the names, the places that may be a good fit. And it just helps make sure that we can go through that mental exercise so that when it actually comes to the draft and everything after that we know what we're doing and what we're talking about and are able to make good choices once that happens, and that we also don't completely overreact. All right, everybody. I think that is going to do it for us. I want to make sure that if you are not already, make sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this somewhere other than YouTube, also make sure to go ahead and head over there and subscribe to us. Please, you would be doing us a big favor. We are trying to build that community over there. That being said, make sure to check out our website at 32beatwriters.com. Check out the new tools page. You're going to be able to build your 2025 Dynasty Draft Tracker over there. Maybe you could do that as you listen to the show here, as well as any of our most recent articles at 32beatwriters.com. For Matt Olson and all of the 32 Beat Writers staff, I am Zach Hiduk, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Beat with Zach Hiduk and Matt Olson.